Adobe Flash is another program that can be used to create animations. It's a little more complicated and the interface is completely different than the drag and drop blocks of Scratch and Code.org. Flash is commonly used to create animations like internet games and cartoons, advertisements, to integrate video into web pages like in YouTube. For our first Flash animation, we're just going to create a circle, and then we're going to make some copies of that circle and make them do different things on the screen. So once we launch Adobe Flash, it gives you a lot of different choices for types of files you can create. We're going to hit Create New ActionScript 3.0. Okay, then let's take a look at the interface for Flash. It may look familiar to you because it's made by the same company that makes Photoshop. And so we have a toolbar along the side, just like that. We have our stage right here, just like in Scratch. Down at the bottom we have a timeline because the animation is going to change over time, so we have to adjust the frames on the timeline. Okay, so to begin with, find the Shape tool, which is the rectangle on the toolbar, and we're going to change that shape by clicking and holding on it. We're going to change it to an oval. Okay, we're going to draw a circle in the middle of the stage, just about like that. Then down on the bottom, we want to double click the words Layer 1, and we want to change the name of that to the word Size. Then we want to click once more on the name of the layer, which is now called Size, and what that does is it selects everything that's on that layer, which is not just the circle, but it's the outline of the circle and the fill of the circle. Then what we want to do is convert that into a symbol. I'm going to go up to Modify, and I'm going to choose Convert to Symbol, and I'm going to name this circle. Press OK, and here's what happens. That circle now has a box around it, which means the whole thing is selected, and it now appears in my symbol library. Okay, it says in the directions you're going to duplicate that object twice. This is not telling you to do that. This is telling you what you're going to be doing when you follow the directions. Just by drawing an object does not allow you to animate it, but by converting it to a symbol, we have just created an object that we can animate, we can change, and we can use over and over again. So if I wanted to create something, for example, that uses 100 different circles, if I drew 100 different circles, it would make this file size fairly big and it would take longer for it to load. But if I draw one circle and save it in the library, I can just make copies of that, and it only has to remember one circle that it's using over and over again. So now I'm going to insert another layer by pressing the Insert New Layer button in the lower corner of the screen. It looks like this, like a sheet of paper. It's right over here. So now I have layer 2. I don't want my next circle on the same layer as my first one. I want to drag a circle from the library, and I'm going to drop it on the left side of the stage, and now that circle's on layer 2, and I'm going to double click layer 2 and I'm going to rename it Place, and I'm going to hit return. Then I'm going to create a third layer, and then I'm going to drag a circle in on the right side of the stage, and I'm going to rename that layer, and that's going to be called Color. Okay, so now I have 3 circles, each on its own layer. Okay, I can tell that they're on their own layers because I have a solid black dot next to each one in frame 1. Okay, if I had an empty circle here instead of a filled in circle, that would mean that one of the layers is missing its circle, and there's probably 2 circles on the same layer then. Okay, so now I have 3 copies. Now I have 3 copies of the same symbol, which is the circle. Each copy needs to be on its own layer in order to animate them separate with the type of animation that we're going to perform on them. So basically those are the 3 different ways you can animate any object. You can change its color, you can change its place, or you can change its size. So now we're going to change those objects. on the timeline, I'm going to find the number 60. There's the number 60. You can't click on the number 60. You have to click on a particular layer. All right, so we are going to click the gray box right below the number 60. So now I have selected frame 60 on the color layer. I'm going to insert a keyframe on this layer by going up to Insert, Timeline, Keyframe. Two of my circles now disappeared, and they're supposed to. Why did they disappear? Well, if you look at the timeline, I now am looking at frame 60 of my animation, but two of the circles only exist on frame 1 so far. Okay, so now I'm going to click the gray box below that one I just added, and I'm going to insert a keyframe there also. Insert, Timeline, Keyframe. And then this is going to do the same thing with the third one. Insert, Timeline, Keyframe. So I have my 3 circles back, and they exist for 60 frames of my animation. If I press Return, I can see it play. And of course it doesn't do anything yet because it looks the same on frame 1 as it does on frame 60. But now we're going to transform those. So we're going to go to our tool box, and we're going to choose the free transform tool. It's right below the second arrow. So this one right here. And we're going to grab the corner of the middle circle, and we're going to stretch it a little bit and make it a little bigger. Okay. Then I'm going to click on the dot above. Now you have to make sure you're on frame 60 when you do that. Okay, then I'm going to click on the dot above that one. That should select the circle that's in the left, the one on the place layer. Frame 60 in the place layer. I'm going to grab that one, not from the dot in the middle, but from any of the filled in area. And I'm going to move it to where I want it to end up. So down here in the lower right corner. And then I'm going to click the dot on the timeline above that one, so frame 60 in the color layer. Okay, so I'm going to make sure I have selected that circle and I clicked once on it. And then I'm going to go to the Properties tab, which is next to the library. And I have color effect. Okay, so I want to choose, how do I want to change the color of that? Well, I can change its brightness, I can change its tint, I have some advanced features, and I can change its alpha. And alpha is a term for transparency, just like instant alpha in Keynote. So I'm going to go to tint, and I'm going to choose a color, choose yellow. Okay, and you want to make sure that the slider is all the way over, so the tint is all the way up to 100%. So now we've told each object what it's going to look like in frame 60. And by the way, if you accidentally double click, you're going into this editing mode. You don't want to do that. You want to go back by hitting the back arrow in the top right there. So if I accidentally double click, hit the back arrow. Okay, so we're on frame 60. If I go back to frame 1, I still see what the circles originally looked like. And if I hit return, they still look like that until frame 59. And then on frame 60 they change. So now we're going to tell it that we want to animate them so that they change gradually instead of suddenly. So last part of the directions, on the timeline you're going to click in any of the gray areas. So between the two keyframe dots. So either here or anywhere in between. And I'm going to insert what's called a tween, short for in between. It's an old animation term back from when Walt Disney first began animating. I'm going to insert classic tween. I'm going to do the same thing for all 3 layers. Insert classic tween, and then there, insert classic tween. Now if I go to the beginning, hit the return key, and I can see that they are animated. Return again. Okay. You can save this file, save as. Okay, you want to give it a name. Circles. And you want to save that. And then you want to call me over and I'm going to check it right on your screen.